Just to get us started, look, I've always considered Metal Lake's place in Australian rock to be somewhat underrated. The band probably hasn't in more recent years received the kudos it probably deserved. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would, John. Yeah, to a certain extent. I think it was unfortunate that there have been opportunities where things could have been different, but they weren't developed. Obviously, the show at the MCG in 1998 was a case in point where there's an opportunity there for the people at Mushroom Records to really make something of it, but it wasn't to be. I think in the main, people like Michael Gudinski and to a lesser extent other people at the record company, they've got communal mental failure, because I think they think that Mushroom Records started with Skyhooks, you know, and there's a lot that went on far before that, and you know, I mean, really, the whole thing was built on the backyard industry of the early '70s, and it's not only Metal Lake that hasn't had the due credit given to it. There's a number of other acts as well.
Sure.
But so yeah, I think it's on the nose for sure.
Tell us how you came to be part of the band that became Metal Lake. It all sort of happened at Swinburne Tech, didn't it?
It did, yes. We're all at art school together, and how many rock and roll bands around the world started at art school?
Yeah,
you know. But yeah, no, it was a fantastic time, and a very, very creative time. I mean, when I look back on it, it was obviously one of the highlights in my life. The actual creative stage, it was just it was amazing. We used to put endless hours in, but it was just, we were doing it for fun, and that's what it grew out of. It was just really, really exciting stuff. Exciting, even though fame hadn't come our way at all. We were still just playing at the 21st and footy club dues and stuff like that. So it was little league stuff. But the thing was, we were playing our own music.
Yeah.
And just for that reason alone, it was very very stimulating. I'm trying to think of the right words here, but in a time where everybody was copying music from overseas. And there we were, working out of a little brick shed in Hawthorne, writing our stuff, and then on weekends going out and playing original songs and having people respond to it. It was fantastic.
Did it take long to establish the sound that you wanted? Did you have a blueprint in mind for the sound?
No. It was just it was one of those natural ones, where it's
just evolved.
And that's it. They're just naturally evolved, and that's the best kind. There was nothing forced at all. No issues. I mean, we didn't even think about business or think about where we wanted to be or what we wanted to do. The primary concern was, hey, we're actually making our own music and people like it, so let's keep doing it. It was great.
Did there come a defining moment for you when you had to make a choice between continuing your studies and making music full time?
Well, it got to the point, over the space of a few years, that we ended up working. Really, it was getting to the stage where we were working nearly every night, and so it was very difficult to get up in the morning with a clear head and go off and sit in a lecture theatre, or after having 2 hours sleep, be in a studio doing life drawing. I mean, the head just didn't happen, So that was the deciding factor. It was, the music won out. It was more fun. I mean, art school was great fun, but the music was even more fun. I think both things. There's the social stuff at art school was great because I remember getting involved with the reviews and all the art school parties and all that sort of thing. But on the weekends, at night with the band, it was really life was a party, and it was really exciting times.
You have vivid memories of the Sunbury festivals?
Or parts of it, I remember because we were the first band to ever. We opened the first day of the first Sunbury, and when they made a movie of it, the people editing it, because we're our footage hit the editing floor, so that Sunbury movie is minus us, which is a shame.
That's a tragedy, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the story of Madder Lake. Let me tell you, Madder Lake, as the years go rolled on, was the land of missed opportunities, but I just look back on the whole thing and think, wow, it was just a slice of life that really we're all lucky to be a part of, because that whole period in the early 70s was just there was just so much going on. The music actually had a really influential place in Australian society, and we were a part of it, and it was just for a young person in their early 20s, it was just such an eye opener. It was hard to put into words, and unfortunately, as the years tick on, I've got to tell you, John, well, bits just slip away. I was talking to Kerry, the bass player, who I still stay in touch with, about that fact just a week ago. The fact that the whole history of or our part in the history of events is just going to disappear. It's which is a travesty, quite frankly. I mean, it's just things like what we're doing today. It's an oral record of part of it, but to be honest with you, there's very little left. I mean, there's things that I find astounding. There's a guy that I'm in contact with. He was telling me that on eBay in the UK, there's a Madder Lake handbill. I mean, we're talking, just an A4 size sheet, a printed handbill, and it's being auctioned on eBay, or was auctioned on eBay. It went for £80.
Goodness me.
I mean, I'm thinking, hey, So, I'm going, well, I've got a few bits and pieces here, and anyway, it's all interesting.
Yeah. So you had a lot of missed opportunities, but one opportunity that did come your way was the supporting of the Rolling Stones on their tour.
That was great, yeah. That was Kooyong. That was knockout. And after, that started the ball rolling, I suppose, in getting major interest from the radio networks around the country, and really started the ball rolling in a big way. But also beyond the Rolling Stones, I mean, we ended up playing with so many overseas acts. It was, with hindsight, I can see it must have been the link between, or not must have been, was the link between Gudinski and the overseas promoters and what have you. He was building himself up, and we were part of the machinery that was building up the empire. But Yeah, the Stones, that was an eye-opener.
Was.
I think the funny part about that was, I still remember, they had the press conference was at Montsalvat, outside of Melbourne, at Eltham.
Oh, yeah.
And, guys like Charlie Watts, Bill Wyman, were really, really down to earth. I mean, we were just having a chat. It was, it was really Keith Richards and Mick Jagger that were, bouncing around with the TV cameras and the media people, but the rest of them really down to earth, So it was good having an opportunity to meet them and just, I think we spent from memory an hour or two just chatting about, nothing, I suppose, just everyday stuff. And, it was good, but, and then when we got to the actual performing end of it at Kooyong, I remember backstage, it was a bit like Satyricon, but it was the media people, because all the food and the drink was laid on. There's enough there for thousands, except there are only a few hundred. So, you had people jumping in, drinking all the bourbon and the rest of it. And, because the thing was, I was, obviously I wasn't drinking or anything before the show, and I could see exactly what was going on, and I thought, hang on a minute, it's party time backstage and party time out the front in the audience, and we were in the middle. But it's, again, it's one of those things that you never forget.
Yeah, for sure. You guys were already quite an established touring band by the time you finally got in and recorded that first album. How much of an advantage was that, going into the studio already a seasoned act?
Well, to a certain degree, it made things easier, in as much as we had worked the songs up to the stage where we could just we knew them by rote, basically, except that I could never remember the words, and I always made them up as I went along. But but yeah, no, that side of it was fine. But being in the studio and working with technology that we hadn't worked with before, obviously there was a learning curve there. And I remember there was a bit of angst there, because what happened was, it was the old one of being in a situation where others know what's going on and you don't, and it's very easy to be manipulated, and to a certain extent that is what happened, because it's, I mean, you would have heard it time and again from other recording artists where, if they had their time again, they would have done certain things differently. And it's much the same with us, because it was really that first album, and to a certain degree the second one, they were really manufactured, A lot of the raw energy was taken away, smoothed over, and I mean, I'm sure if things were done today, it would have been done differently, because in the recording process, it's they sand off all the rough edges and make it thinking that it's going to make it far more palatable for commercial radio, when in actual fact, in doing that, it takes away the essence of what the sound's about,
Yeah.
And from that angle, I wasn't too happy, and I know for sure that a couple of the others were mightily peeved by it.
Just the same, though, it's still a classic album and a great album to come up with on debut. Did you go into the studio with a confidence that you did have something special there, something that would stand the test of time as it has?
No, not at all. I mean, it's gee whiz. I mean, you're looking at time, turn the clock back, 35 years. I mean, rock and roll music in Australia is a disposable item, I mean, if you're looking at a career in rock and roll music with any sense of longevity, you would be considered to be crazy, and we were just in there. I mean, when it started rolling, we just went with it. You know, it was like, you know, stuck in a king tide. You know, you just went with it, and it to a certain extent it just took over. You know, which was good and bad. You know, because it just, I mean, so it happened to everyone that had any level of success at all. You know, it was just if you were there in 12 months' time, you know, consider yourself lucky. You know, really, that was it. I mean, you know, you'd go in one end, and if you came out standing at the other, you were doing well.
Now, somebody who came to the band shortly after this time and who's still quite active musically, Andy Cohen.
Yeah.
How did he come to the band?
Well, John, as we all did, you know, like the original people just moved in and out over the years, myself included. John went out for a while, and I knew, this is pre-Skyhooks, but I knew Bob Starkey quite well through my brother and a few other people. And Bob said, "Oh, you know, I know this guy. He's really a really good keyboard player." And it was Andy. So, you know, I think Andy was working at the time. You know, it took a bit of persuading actually to get him to do it. But anyway, he came on board, and I mean, he was fantastic. You know, and it's really gratifying. Let me tell you, it's really gratifying to see someone that's come through the whole thing and is doing well.
And doing so well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Kerry was saying that he went along to the CD release at the Corner Hotel, which was being filmed as well by the ABC, and he said it was knockout. You know, he had a brass section, and it was just, you know, the full bit. I mean, it's good to see. You know, someone's actually been able to pedal through all the garbage
and survived.
And survived, yeah.
How do you look back on the second album, Butterfly Farm, in compared to the first?
Well, it was in hindsight, I mean, you know, all the pieces were there, but they weren't put together properly. So I think, you know, we were mighty tired. You know, it's and I know that's not an excuse, but it is an excuse. It was not. It is not an excuse. It's a reason why things came a bit unhinged. You know, because quite frankly, we used to talk about it endlessly, like we were on some sort of, you know, merry-go-round, and it just didn't stop. And because what had happened, we'd be working week in, week out to sustain the whole operation, and then in the middle of it, you know, we need another album. So you know, we'd be writing. Mind you, I mean, the songs themselves, I believe, you know, there are things that were really great, like on Butterfly Farm is the song Mothership, which, I mean, at the time, you know, I remember people walking through the recording studio when we were doing it, and you know, because we were, let's be honest here, by that stage we were a little on the maniacal side, and we could be quite scary. We could scare ourselves, as a matter of fact, you know. But in the studio, I still remember that it was just it was amazing, you know, because Andy was working with the Moog. And the song Butterfly Farm itself, I mean, there's lots of tricky bits, and we, you know, really worked hard to make it happen, but unfortunately it didn't. It was I'm trying to think, there's no other way to say it. Hey, it bombed, you know.
Yeah.
And we should have had some sort of mechanism behind us to say, okay, guys, don't give up, keep going. But it was a shocker, John. I mean, because what happened, let's be honest here, and really, the way the whole thing we were working in, I'm talking outside the band, but the industry, as soon as there's some hint that that the shine's wearing off here, they're not as good as they were last week. You'd be viewed as being on the nose, because it wasn't a huge industry, and especially when for all intents and purposes, there's only one major local recording company, and especially there's only one large agency that handled all the artists. So, as soon as things started to look shaky in any way at all, you were just put on the back burner. So, and that's what happened to us. So in other words, it didn't just happen to us, it happened to lots and lots of people. As soon as things weren't happening, see you later. And that was the cause of a lot of this satisfaction, because we realised how hard we were working, and by that stage, and what we wanted to do. And I still, to this day, I think the older you get, you start saying, well, you're dreaming. But looking back, if we had persevered, I think the third or fourth album, we would have really started to make headway. And if the opportunities had have been there for us to instead of doing endless circuits of Australia, if we could have been able to work in new territory overseas, even we didn't get to New Zealand, and yet we're selling over there. We should have gone to the UK. I mean, people told us, they said, "Hey, you guys would kill them, Europe, UK." I mean, again, we talked opportunities before.
Yeah.
We just didn't do it, and from that point on, it's like if you're working hard at anything, and it becomes repetitious, you get very tired very quickly. So that was part of the reason for the path that eventually occurred.
How was the relationship between the band and Mushroom at the time? I know you said that there's been some baggage there in more recent years, but at the time, were they particularly supportive?
As I said, I know I'd stick by this. I reckon that as soon as the sales figures started to slide, they dropped us like a hot rock. Move to the next one, please, because they treat it like an assembly line.
Yeah.
And there's no two ways about it. I mean, you can't be nice about it. You'd go to industry functions, and people would walk the other way. It was that sort of stuff, and it was it's pathetic, quite frankly. Really unprofessional and childish. But hey, I'm still here. But so I don't hold many people on the industry side in very high regards, purely for the reasons I've just stated. I mean, it's good to see some of them have moved on. I mean, this guy used to be a roadie for us, Ian Smith, and he went on to, he's working within the Gadinsky organisation, but he's a really nice guy, and as far as I know, last time I saw Smithy, he was managing the Mercury Lounge for Michael. But I mean, I had moments. I still got a soft spot these days for Frank Stavala. I know a lot of people from that time. He used to upset a few people, and no, he's always one of the few that was straight down the line with me. You know, if things weren't happening, he'd let me know. But as far as the other one, how can I put this? Anybody who's got power has got a ring of sycophants around them who are at their beck and call, and that's really what it was. It was like a mini fiefdom, King Michael and all the little trolls working around him, And I couldn't abide by it. I thought, this is off the planet, But anyway, I don't want to keep going over and over, because knowing the way of the world, I'll probably get a letter from his solicitor in a week or two.
Was it a tough decision for you to leave the band when you did that first time in 1975, or was that something that had been brewing for a while?
I was burnt out,
Had enough.
And I got sick and tired of people coming up to me going, you're Australia's Joey Crocker, and I'd go, geez, do I have to go through this another 1,000th time? Because quite honestly, John, what I did was me. I wasn't trying to be anyone else.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it just happened that I had mannerisms that were similar to somebody else. I didn't put myself out as having the greatest voice of all time. Because if you remember at the start of the conversation, it all started in a little brick shed in Hawthorne.
Yep.
When we were all having a good time. But in the space of a few years, it moved to a point where I was meant to be somebody else, and I wasn't anyone else. I was basically the same guy that was in that shed those years ago. And really, it's just I left because I just couldn't take it anymore. My head was just reeling with working, getting nowhere, and just seeing other people profit from what we were doing, and we didn't have a cracker. I mean, we're supposed to exist on the joy of celebrity, and that doesn't put food in your mouth. Anyway, sook. But that's pretty close to the truth, I reckon.
Tell us about Bandicoot, little band you had after Meadow Lake. Did you have long-term plans for that band?
Well, that was good old Shane. That was another highlight too. Albeit we didn't have as much success as we would have liked, but gee whiz, there's some good songs on that album. But that's stiff too, because we made some stupid decisions there. But, getting involved with the wrong record company and just endless stuff. But and again, in order to make the thing work, we jumped on the merry-go-round and off we went again. So there was another 3 years of head-banging stuff. But Shane was and still is. Well, there's someone else that's really moved on, and credit to him. It's a joy to see him achieve the success that he has. But he was fantastic to work with. He made me laugh like no one else has ever made me laugh. It was, and we had some funny times. I mean, I remember once, I'm trying to think of the guy's name. He used to be the editor of The Age. Gee, it's on the tip of my tongue. Oh, crikey. We went into this guy's office.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to see us about. Well, we weren't too happy. That's right. Again, it's record company time, but we weren't too happy about certain things that had happened, and we went had a meeting with him, and the business part took all of 30 seconds, and then for the next, it was almost the whole afternoon from memory. We Ronald McDonald, that's who it was.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And we're in his office, and it was just, he was cracking jokes, Shane was cracking jokes, and I was just rolling around on the floor laughing. I mean, we had such a good time that afternoon. So we're just having cups of tea and bickies, and out would come the one-liners and the experiences that everybody had had, and it was just that was an amazing. There's another thing, that was an amazing little part in my life that afternoon. But working with Shane, and mind you, there's some really really good songs on that album. I mean, it was so obviously it was Beatlesque in influence on a number of the songs. There was Shane's love of Jerry Lee Lewis that came through on a couple. But again, we had a great time. We sat down and wrote those songs. It took us 18 months, and we treated it like going to the office each day. I'd show up at his place because he had a piano there. Show up. We had the guitars and the piano, and we just sat down and wrote songs. Lots and lots and lots of songs. Only a few of them made it to the first album. Again, I mean, if it had have gone on, who knows? There might have, but it just wasn't to be. I remember at one of the later incarnations of Metal Lake, we started doing a couple of the songs that were on that album with Shane, and I think we did justice to them. But I mean, there's some good stuff, but it's all in the cupboard these days.
I'd say it's the people who did buy that album are very, very fond of it, because you don't see it around the various second-hand markets at all. It's very hard to find.
Oh, you're not kidding, John. I think I've got a couple of copies, but I mean, I know I've got some master tracks of stuff, demos for future stuff that we had planned. But that was a good time too. I mean, we had funny experiences. I mean, and really with Bandicoot, we travelled quite a bit. I mean, at the start we wanted to call ourselves the Beagle Boys, and there was already someone else overseas with the name Beagle Boys. But there you go. We had aspirations, I suppose, of hey, who knows, we could do something. But anyway.
And there was a brief return to Metal Lake after that. Did you see that at the time as hopefully a whole new beginning?
I didn't know. I mean, it was at that stage. It was. No, I think we just, everybody had families, and we're out. It was fun, but I think after being biffed around the head for so long, we didn't have any aspirations of anything great happening. I mean, and it's got to jump ahead a few years at this juncture, because I know that it almost without fail every year, we get offers to do the festival circuit, and it's similar to that. If it was fun, if there wasn't going to be any aggro between anybody, we'd do it. But as far as any long-term career thoughts, no, never entered the picture at all. But again, with all the offers we invariably get, nothing ever happens, and it's just. I think it reached a point in '98 where after the show at the MCG, that was it. I remember after walking off stage that day and just going, well, that's it. It was just people going in different directions, and I was to a certain degree. It was a shame that it wasn't the original band playing at the MCG. Because quite honestly, I believe it would have been different. It would be different. I'm sure we would be working now if it had have been. Because it's just created. There's big division within the whole thing now. I mean, it's like there's two camps. I think I've spoken to Brendan. I spoke with him actually earlier this year because we were looking at doing a Saturday afternoon residency, which, again, purely for fun, at the Rainbow, which would have been fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Because we just thought, what a great venue to for people of our generation, just to come along, have a few drinks and party time, and just a really relaxed atmosphere. But it wasn't to be, because it would have been the way we wanted to do it was with the original lineup. But the others didn't want to know about it, so it didn't happen. And if we ever do an album, we should call it that. Anyway,
I believe there's quite a bit of unreleased material in the vaults. Are we ever likely to hear that?
I don't know. I've got between all of us there's a lot of material, but you'd need to sit down and get people agreeing on stuff, and I can't see it happening.
Yeah.
Not unless there was someone that could act as a third party and just say, and also had the business nous to pull it all together. I can't see it happening, unfortunately. I've got CDs of really rare stuff. As I mentioned to you before, there's tapes which, they'd only go through the machine once. I mean, there's a lot of historic stuff that something needs to be done, It really is going to take someone with a lot of persistence and dedication to pull it together. And where do you find that? There's funny things have happened. I mean, the past 12 months, there's a guy up in Sydney that I'm in contact with who told me that this started a few years ago, that there's whispers that there's a secret stash of GTK tapes that had been saved by Bernie Cannon.
Oh, wow.
And this year I managed to see some of the stuff. And it's, it's amazing. You've got, broadcast quality footage, stuff that was shot on film. God only knows what's going to happen with it. But it'd be worth a small fortune, I should imagine. Not just because we're there, but the number of other Australian artists of that period. And I think the ABC is trying to work out what to do with it. Because there would be a market out there. I mean, that could be the genesis of something. I don't know, but I've got footage of Matt Lake doing 12-pound toothbrush live to air, and it's amazing, It's really retained the essence of what the band was about. It's captured it at the time when the band was starting to peak. So I mean, it's really historic footage.
Mm.
But what else is there? I mean, there's that. There's genuine interest right around the country. I mean, and people have talked about booking us for festivals around the country, and and they're confident that we would have strong drawing power.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
But and to be honest, if we could sort out all our differences, I'm sure it could happen. But as I said to Kerry the other week, I said, well, gee whiz, like if it'd be good to do something, quite honestly, and not being too morbid, before someone falls off the perch. Because none of us are here forever. Actually, on the weekend, I went to the Echoes of Freedom, the 150th anniversary festival, music festival in Ballarat, and it was a knockout, and I thought, I went along with my wife and son, and as I said to Vicky, I said, listen, sweetheart, I've got the urge, but no one to do it with. It was knockout, and it was international music too. So yesterday afternoon, Paul Kelly was on.
Yep.
And the day before, Jimmy Little, and I'd never seen Jimmy Little, which was good. And Yossi Indy, and I'd never seen them live, so that was fantastic. But I just thought, gee whiz, we could do this, with my overinflated thoughts of myself. But I'm sure we could, As I said, if people decided to get real about it. Because I know even what we did at the MCG, it's still there, it's just making it happen, but as I said, I'm not holding my breath.
Well, let's hope it does, but if it doesn't, how would you like to see Metal Lake be remembered?
Oh, well, I'd like to think that we were a part of a really fertile, creative period in Australian music, which really was laying the foundations for modern music as it is today. We're, in our own small way, we're one of the foundation members of the secret society of Australian rock and roll. But I mean, every time I get together with Kerry, I still make music.
Yeah.
It never goes. Never goes. But it'd be great doing it. Playing the music to an audience rather than to ourselves in a lounge room, if that makes sense.
Yep. Well, fantastic, Mick. Thanks so much for your time. It's been an absolute treat to catch up with you.
Oh, thanks, John. It's been good talking to you, mate.
And
folks, it's taken 3 goes to get this one happening.
That's unlucky to say. But look, we'll keep our fingers crossed that it does all come together again. We'd love to see the band back up on stage again, or if not, maybe get your own little band together and do the rounds. That'd be great.
You never know. You never know. Okay, John.
Fantastic, mate. Take care. Might see you around the schools. You never know.
Yeah. Thanks again, mate.
Good on you. Cheers.
Bye.